I want to start with a question. Has anybody checked on Donald Trump? I mean, seriously, do we need a wellness check here? I feel like he might need a wellness check. Now, we know that Donald Trump is a seasoned citizen, a senior citizen. He's an elderly gentleman. And we know that when people get older, they can tend to get a little bit erratic, right? You start to get a little destabilized. You can be a little discombobulated. I want to just go through a few things that Donald Trump has done recently. Okay. This is his latest attack on CNN. We're going to put this up. Donald Trump attacking CNN. He's apparently very upset with CNN because Natasha Bertrand, who is a fantastic reporter, by the way. We used to book Natasha Bertrand on my old weekend show, AM Joy. Natasha is brilliant. She's like 12 years old. She's a kid. She's very, very young, but a brilliant reporter who's now at CNN. Donald Trump was unhappy with her reporting that Donald Trump's big, beautiful bombs that he used to drop on Iran, even though Iran had not attacked us, probably didn't really have the impact that he claimed they did. He claimed that they obliterated Iran's nuclear capability. Natasha Bertrand should be fired, Donald Trump is now saying from CNN. I watched her for 3 days during fake news. Let's stop right there for a moment. Why are you watching CNN when you are overseas at a summit, a NATO summit, representing the United States, Donald Trump? Why are you sitting down and for 3 straight days watching CNN? Don't you have better things to do? But he said he watched her for 3 straight days and said she lied about the laptop from hell story. And now she lied on the nuclear site story. That he destroyed the Patriot pilots by making them look bad when in fact they did a great job, blah, blah, blah. He's upset because the facts are not in his favor when it comes to the attack on Iran. I want to now read you guys CNN's response. We can put that up. CNN has actually responded. And I've been concerned that these news organizations would take the knee, would not do the right thing and stand by their journalists. We saw Terry Moran fired from ABC because of a tweet that he put up that Stephen Miller didn't like. You know, speaking against the regime can get you jailed in some other countries, but here it can get you fired from your media job. CNN Communications put out a statement, which we're going to put up now, and they said, we stand 100% beside Natasha Bertrand's journalism, and specifically her and her colleagues' reporting of the early intelligence assessment of the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facility. CNN's reporting made clear that this was an initial finding that could change with additional intelligence. We have extensively covered President Trump's own deep skepticism about it. However, we do not believe it reasonable to criticize CNN reporters for accurately reporting the existence of the assessment and accurately characterizing its findings, which are in the public interest, unquote. The reason that Natasha Bertrand is reporting that there is great doubt about whether the bombs, the 3,000-pound bunker buster bombs that the U.S. dropped on Iran actually destroyed their nuclear capability is because all 16 intelligence agencies, which already reported that they had no evidence that Iran was trying to build a nuclear weapon at all, none of them can confirm that there was actual total destruction, total obliteration, as Donald Trump keeps saying, of the nuclear capabilities of Iran. In fact, the reporting, and this is the next piece I want to put up, is that the assessments of what Iran was doing according to intelligence professionals, people who do this for a living, is that Donald Trump's assessments of what Iran was doing were based more on vibes, not intel, vibes. And yet you had Donald Trump not only veering off of his original promise to be a president who would not start new dumb wars and get out of old dumb wars, he went all the way from there to George W. Bush 2.0, regime change, suddenly calling for regime change in Iran, saying, make Iran great again, MEGA instead of MAGA, prompting even some of his own supporters to get upset. Thomas Massie, the Republican congressman, who he now apparently is going to primary, even Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now I want to play you guys a video because this is why I'm asking, is Trump okay? Okay. I want you to look at the very quick climb down from A to Z from Donald Trump just in the last 24 hours. This was yesterday, I believe. This dropped yesterday. It was all over cable news yesterday. And here he is talking about what Israel and Iran were doing in response to the U.S. bombing. Here it is.
Great.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Do you have to respond to Iran on this?
Okay, you heard that, right? Donald Trump, so presidential, dropping an F-bomb on Bibi Netanyahu's Israel and on Iran because they will not obey him. Now, first of all, Donald, you have already let Bibi Netanyahu run freely and do whatever he wants with the weapons that we're providing him and the $3 billion a year we're giving him. I'm not sure why you think you can suddenly control him. He's going to do whatever he wants. You're going to check him, boo. Certainly not you. But the F-bomb laced angry Trump from yesterday has now morphed into the Bibi loving Trump of today. I promise you, in 24 hours, he has gone from dropping F-bombs on Bibi, saying he and Iran don't know what the F they're doing, and dropping it like fully, openly cussing, which was all over the news yesterday, to this. We're going to put this on screen. This is strange, to say the least. This is Donald Trump using the CNN favorite phrase, breaking news, in all caps. I was shocked to hear that the state of Israel, which has just had one of its greatest moments in history and is strongly led by Bibi Netanyahu, is continuing its ridiculous witch hunt against their great wartime Prime Minister Bibi. And I just went through hell. He and I just went through hell together, fighting a very tough and brilliant longtime enemy of Israel, Iran. And Bibi could not have been better, sharper, or stronger in his love for the incredible Holy Land. Anybody else would have suffered his losses, embarrassment, and chaos. Bibi Netanyahu was a warrior, all caps, like perhaps no other warrior in the history of Israel. And the result was something that nobody thought was possible, the complete elimination of potentially one of the biggest and most powerful nuclear weapons anywhere in the world. They didn't have nuclear weapons. I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. And it was going to happen soon, all caps. We were fighting literally for the survival of Israel. And there is nobody in Israel's history that fought harder or more competently than Bibi Netanyahu. Despite all of this, I just learned that Bibi has been summoned to court on Monday for the continuation of this long running. He has been going through this horror show since May of 2020. Unheard of. This is the first time a sitting Israeli prime minister has ever been on trial. He keeps going on. Politically motivated case. He talks about unfair charges. He talks about it's going to harm Bibi Netanyahu. He uses the all caps phrase witch hunt, which he used to use for himself, for a man who's given so much, so unthinkable, undeserved. Immediately, he needs to have a pardon. A pardon needs to be given to this great hero who's done so much for the state of Israel. Nowhere in here, by the way, does he talk about U.S. interests. He talks about the fact that we just were destroying Israel's enemy. He talks about the fact that Bibi's been such a patriot to Israel. And he talks about Bibi's personal legal problems and says he should be immediately pardoned, all caps immediately. And he calls it a travesty of justice that cannot be allowed. This looks like something that maybe Bibi's PR would have written, but not the president of the United States. I don't think I've ever seen in my entire life, and I've been around a while and have been watching politics a while, a president of the United States writing in a lengthy screed. This is a lengthy screed without paragraph breaks, by the way. Not really great grammar. Defending a foreign leader who is under indictment in his own country and not even once mention the interests of the country he's supposedly governing and leading. And writing this screed while overseas at a NATO conference. Can someone explain what's going on? Is Trump okay? Is Trump being bribed by Bibi? Like, what's happening? Why is he suddenly Bibi Netanyahu's publicist? Because there's no U.S. interests at stake in Bibi Netanyahu being on trial or indicted for corruption in Israel. That is Bibi's problem. That's a Bibi problem. That's not an America problem. Why is Donald Trump taking up that cause? What's going on? Is he okay? Because he was just cussing at him the day before, and now all of a sudden he's screeched and turned on a 180, and now all of a sudden he's ranting and raving, not about his own problems, not about the United States interests, not about Iran defying the U.S. and the so-called ceasefire, which, by the way, is like shooting someone in the arm and then trying to shake hands. We bomb them and then saying, why won't they make peace? Makes no sense. All right, that's a lot. But I want to now move on. But I just wanted to get that out. Meanwhile, with all of that going on in this country, last night, an earthquake happened in New York City. And not the kind of earthquake that brings down buildings. I'm talking about the kind that shifts politics and humbles political parties. Zohran Mamdani, the improbable candidate, a 33-year-old pro-Palestinian, democratic socialist, local Queens politician, a state assemblyman in Queens, an immigrant born in Uganda, and to an anti-colonialism scholar named Mahmoud Mamdani, and a filmmaker who you might know named Mira Nair. And now, if you do not remember who Mira Nair is, and this was a light bulb that went off in my head today, Mira Nair is the lady who directed the movie Mississippi Masala, which Denzel Washington started. That's who his mom is. And I don't know why I just got that today, when my wonderful producer gave me a full dossier on him, and it just pinged in my head today. He's a defender of immigrants. He became a citizen at 7 years old after coming here from Uganda. He's done hunger strikes with taxi drivers to try to win debt relief for them. He's focused on making the city more affordable, making bus fares free. He's really pushing to make housing more, affordable. All of those things. Somebody that you would never think that New York City would go for. Beat the Andrew Cuomo, the literal former governor of the entire state of New York. Cuomo was endorsed by all the money people. Michael Bloomberg, he had all Michael Bloomberg's money and endorsements. He had all the high-key Democrats in the Democratic establishment, came all the way from Washington and from states beyond to come and endorse him. He had all of that. And yet, Mamdani beat him to become the Democratic nominee to be the next mayor of the Big Apple. Big, big news. Like last night, Harry Enton, when we were on CNN with my sore Abby Phillips, called it David Dinkins level earthquake news. So now Mamdani gets to face Eric Adams, who is living on Fox and running as an independent because, he's a cop and I guess he wants to lock up immigrants. So that's his bag. And of course, maybe Andrew Cuomo, because Andrew Cuomo kind of conceded, but now he's kind of hinting he might still run. Let's play a little bit of Mamdani's speech last night.
Tonight, we made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. My friends, we have done it. I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
So that was that last night. I mean, this was an earthquake. I think that he was ahead in the polls, so this was not totally unexpected, but he walloped Andrew Cuomo. Let's listen to Andrew Cuomo's concession speech.
Are you predisposed to consider staying on and having a vibrant campaign through November?
I am qualified. I have an independent line. That's done. And I am right now assessing that landscape and looking at the information, talking to people, talking to the stakeholders in my campaign about what that general election is going to look like. I can tell you there are a lot of people who have a lot of concern.
And that was not the concession speech. That was actually him basically going back on the idea that he was conceding at all. Andrew Cuomo still viable, apparently, in the race, maybe. Let's bring in my pal, political scientist, podcaster, professor extraordinaire, and official New Yorker, Christina Greer. Hey, Chrissy.
Hi there. How's it going?
You know what? It's going pretty well for Mr. Mamdani, who literally shook the world last night. Give us your assessment. Harry Enton last night said that this was nothing this groundbreaking earth-shaking has happened in New York City since David Dinkins became the nominee of the Democratic Party. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. I mean, I think, many people thought that Zohran Mamdani would do pretty well. I don't think that they thought he would deliver the walloping that he did last night. Now, keep in mind, we still don't have all of the numbers and they'll come in on July 1st. But I was always of two minds, Joy. I said, this night is either going to go by really quickly and we'll know something, or it'll drag on for weeks and weeks. And the former applied. I think a lot of people, though, thought that it might go really quickly for Andrew Cuomo, but he didn't run a campaign, Joy. He ran a coronation. He didn't talk to the voters. He didn't touch the voters. There was no ground game. He didn't participate in any of the forums, of which there were several. He only participated in 2 debates, 2 editorial board meetings, and that was it. He essentially, I say, ran a less is more tour, where he, had lots of endorsements by electeds, many Black electeds in New York City and out of New York City. But that's only because people loved his dad. They assumed he would win. A lot of people are afraid to be on the wrong side of Andrew Cuomo. And so it was a fait accompli, so they thought. But they didn't realize for the past several months, Zohran Mamdani has been building a real groundswell. He's literally the only campaign you would see around the city with any sort of presence. And so had, Andrew Cuomo and his donors been paying attention to the 5 boroughs and the activity that was happening there, they may have known that they had a bigger problem than their data suggested.
The thing about it is, this does remind me in some ways of sort of a Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton situation, where you have the progressive candidate, the sort of Bernie in the race, that is really exciting young voters, new voters, people who are not frequent voters, and they come out in just huge numbers. And then older Black voters go with the more establishment candidate. You saw James Clyburn come out and endorse Andrew Cuomo. He's the establishment candidate. He's the Hillary v. Obama in the race, right? And so the question then becomes, how do you then consolidate the Democratic Party again when they have such disparate interests? I mean, Andrew Cuomo, put his legal problems aside, if you are capable of doing that, and I'm not sure that I'm capable of doing that, but he's put those aside. He is the ultimate establishment candidate. He isn't going to change anything about the way Democratic Party politics operates in the city of New York. He just won't. He's a traditional Democratic politician, and if you don't want that, you know what I mean? Like you're going to go for Mamdani, but then the question is, if you then are afraid of Mamdani, and I've talked to some people who are like, well, he might ruin the city. There were some Republicans that were on Abby Phillip with me last night who were like, he'll turn it into the 80s crack den that it was in the 80s, and Times Square will fall apart. He's going to raise taxes. How do you bring those two halves together again in November and not have Eric Adams just walk in and win?
Well, and that is a very real possibility. And I keep telling people we have a long road to November 4th. Here's the thing, Joy. New Yorkers, we're many shades of blue. We are a very diverse city. We are not a progressive city. We have a lot of purple in this city. And so Mamdani, keep in mind, the people who show up in June are not the people who show up in November either. The same people. We have an abysmally low turnout, not just for primaries, but in general. So it's quite embarrassing. There are 4 groups that I always tell people you have to pay attention to sort of see where they have gone traditionally. And that's the business community, collective freakout, the real estate community, collective freakout, labor unions, who haven't said much just yet, and Hasidic Jewish community. And they've been traditionally with Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. Those have been sort of the 4 big pillars that anyone who wants to be successful in the New York City mayoral election has to sort of tackle the vast majority of those, if not all 4. The difference this time, Joy, though, is that especially post-COVID, there's so many New Yorkers who are feeling pinched, even if they're not the working class New Yorkers. You saw he did very well with sort of upper middle class white voters, Upper West Side, Park Slope. He did well with that community, and they're not necessarily struggling. But people who are renters, people who are worried about their jobs, people who are worried about international politics and how it'll affect them, not just financially, but morally as well. And so he tapped into a lot of different coalitions. And when I say his ground game was like an Obama 2008, he recognized he had to pull in new people, many people who were disaffected. And so I was of two minds where I thought one of 2 things would happen. One, when the federal government is in such chaotic disarray, some voters just want status quo and stability. Let's not move and start getting something new. The second option is when the federal government is in chaotic disarray, Some people are saying, well, then now's the time to have bold choices and fortune favors the bold. And let's just go for something because clearly the status quo isn't working for us. And we saw, at least in primary voters, that's what happened. But we are going to have to see, you know, and some of the critiques coming out today for people who don't really know New York City politics, they just know politics. And New York is a very nuanced place. No, he didn't do well among Black voters. But Black voters are the most strategic voters. They went with who they thought would win and who they know, which is Andrew Cuomo, because they knew his daddy, Mario Cuomo, who was a thrice-term governor of New York State. And so there was this assumption that Andrew Cuomo would easily get across the finish line. And that's also how Black people have voted. We don't necessarily vote for sort of people who have all these pie in the sky ideas because we know the capacity of the white voter as well. So that's not to say that Zohran Mamdani isn't going to try and chip away and talk to Black voters moving forward. But in a very limited amount of time, when you have a primary, that actually wasn't his concern to try and convert Cuomo voters. It was to try and get young people who were so apoplectic about what's been happening in politics to get them off of the sidelines. They're already registered. They have voted in the past, to get them to turn out in a primary.
Well, we're going to see what happens in the general, because, and we're going to have you come back, Christina, because there's going to be a lot of drama, because, you know, Eric Adams is going to try to play the Black card and try to keep some of his Black vote as well, even though he's running as a right-wing Republican on Fox. I'm really not sure what that's about. And a cop that wants to use Rikers Island to lock up migrants, you know. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff about the immigration stuff. I think the cost of living, it's such a key issue in New York. It's so expensive to live there. It's going to be interesting to see it. Christina Greer, my friend, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking
Thanks, Joy.